Where do I go?
Get out of the Shire. Make for the village of Bree. I'll be waiting for you at the inn of the Prancing Pony.
Okay. This did not happen in the books this way. Now, there are a lot of people who say, but no, Gandalf did say to meet him at Bree. Aha, but no, because that didn't happen until the letter that Frodo got from Barliman Butterbur from Gandalf that said that he was supposed to forward on to Frodo, and that said, if I can't meet you at either let me see if I remember it right, Hobbiton or Crick Hollow, I'll meet you at the Bree. You can trust the landlord at the Prancing Pony. You can pass through Bree, right? If I find you gone, leave a message for me here. If you pass through Bree. All right. So,
which was a message Frodo never got while he was in the Shire.
Right.
So in truth, Gandalf, in fact, as I reread the book in preparation for this, there's that whole chapter Three's Company, which is of course referring to the three hobbits that start the trip out, which are Frodo, Sam, and Pippin. So Merry actually isn't there yet. And they keep referencing the fact that he's waiting for Gandalf to show up. Frodo keeps referencing the fact he's waiting for Gandalf to show up. He's hoping to find Gandalf. So he's clearly not looking for him at the Prancing Pony Inn. He's expecting Gandalf to arrive. And it is a subject of much consternation, in fact, when he talks to the elves, which we will get to in our second video.
Yeah. And so what Gandalf says to Frodo, the last thing he says to Frodo is... Gandalf went off at dawn. I don't remember which chapter this is, but he says, I may be back any day. He said, at the very latest, I shall come back for the farewell party. I think you, after all, may need my company on the road. And then the next day, he went off. And then Frodo was restless and anxious, waiting in vain for the sound of Gandalf. This is before Frodo leaves, the night before Frodo leaves. He decided to wait until nightfall. After that, if Gandalf wanted emergency, he would go to Crick Hollow and might even get there first. So Frodo was completely under the assumption that Gandalf was going to meet him way before Bree. There was no
he was going to accompany him out of the furthest extents of the Shire, at least. Like he wasn't going to be on the road outside of the Shire without Gandalf. That was Frodo's
it's essentially what Gandalf told him. He's like, hey, I'll be there.
Right.
But that doesn't happen. So what happens then is between the movie and the books, right? The timeline is, there's so much that happens between Hobbiton and Bree. So I'm going to go quickly. I'm going to go through the four things that and these are generalizations, right? Obviously, you can go through the minute details of this, but here are the four things that happen. So in the movie timeline, Gandalf leaves, that we saw, and he tells them to go to the Prancing Pony, or tells Frodo and Sam to go to the Prancing Pony. Well, Frodo at that point. So Frodo and Sam leave, and then they encounter Merry and Pippin and a Black Rider, and then they get to the Prancing Pony. That's pretty much it.
Well, they run from the Black Riders.
They run from the Black Riders, right? And if we were to
cross the Brandywine,
but that's, from Merry and Pippin, hitting Merry and Pippin, seeing the Black Rider, they start running. That's essentially one scene where they evade the Black Riders and then get to the Buckleberry Ferry and to Bree, right? So that's like one scene almost. They go and compress it all together. Now, I guess also you'd say that after Frodo and Sam leave, in the extended edition, they also encounter the elves leaving. They see that too. So that's a short event, but that does happen.
Right. Really brief, almost no mention, but yeah.
So in the book timeline, Gandalf leaves. He says, I may be back any day. And then after that, Frodo and Sam and Pippin leave for Crick Hollow together. They encounter a Black Rider. After they encounter the Black Rider, they meet Gildor and Glorian, which we'll go over in the next change. After that, they meet Farmer Maggot. And then they get to Crick Hollow. They leave Crick Hollow with Merry. Then they get to the Old Forest, and they escape Old Man Willow and meet Tom Bombadil. Then they escape the Barrow Downs, and then they finally get to the Prancing Pony. So there's a lot of other events that happen that establish this whole world outside of just the Black Riders chasing them. I mean, you've got Tom Bombadil, you've got Old Man Willow, you've got the changes at Crick Hollow, you've got the horns of the Hobbit horns sounding.
The horn of buckling.
Yeah, the horn of buckling. Thank you. And so there's a lot that goes on. We'll go over one change that we wish they would have left in the extended edition at thewondering.com/members. So all right. So there you go. That's all the changes. That's a huge change for Gandalf just to say, I'm gonna go meet me at Bree, and we're just gonna skip all that.
Right. And to be more specific, or be a little more specific, literally what the movies did here. This is one of the biggest changes in they cut out 6 chapters out of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's huge.
So they basically, I mean, there's some differences like we talked about, like Pippin goes with Sam and Frodo, but they basically cut out chapters 3 through 8 of the Fellowship of the Ring. So and because chapter 9 starts at the sign of the Prancing Pony. So when it introduces Breetown and we see them arrive. So tons of things happen, tons of characters that we never see in the movies at all. And it really is one of the most core changes that Jackson makes to just chop 6 chapters out of the book.
Yeah. It's I mean, I knew this was coming when I saw the films, but it still disappointed me about how much was left out. So much of book 1 of the 6 in Lord of the Rings was just chopped.
Right.
And that makes me sad. All right, so let's talk about it. So is it lore friendly? Well, I think that's a pretty easy answer for me. The answer is no, it's not lore friendly to remove so many of the things that Tolkien put in there.
Right. Yeah. To be clear, Fellowship of the Ring is split into 2 books. And to emphasize my previous point, the first book, which goes all the way up to Rivendell, has 12 chapters in it.
Half.
So that means that Peter Jackson literally cut half of book 1 out in this jump. So
Jeez.
no. Heck,
who is
no.
this chump they got to make these movies? Goodness, man.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, that's, I mean, when you make a change that drastic,
yeah,
that's a no for me. All right. So, how much do we like the change, or does the change make it for better cinema? Sorry, it's been a couple weeks since I've done this. Does the change make for better cinema? You go first, Michael. What say you?
I say no. Now, there's one caveat to this, but it doesn't change my answer, which is still going to be no. But I will say it, which is I understand that, you know, when you're cutting for a cinema length movie, he's going to have to chop something, and he chopped some things which he found to be, he and Fran and Philippa found to be jarring, like Tom Bombadil and things like that. But a bunch of the other stuff wasn't at all jarring. It was actually enriching and we'll talk more about it in our next video about one of those episodes, which is the encounter with the elves. But it's simply, so I understand you can make an efficiency argument, like for time purposes, something had to be cut. Okay, so that means you cut 6 chapters out of the half of the first book of the 2 books of the Fellowship. And that, to me, you can't argue that makes for better cinema ultimately. Now, if he had just cut Tom Bombadil, I might have seen it my way to a yes. But there were so many things in the list that you gave. Right. I have to say,
yeah, no. I think so too. And it also, it shrinks the world a lot. It shrinks that whole area. It feels like there's just Hobbiton and Bree, and that's it.
Correct.
There's so much more, and there's so many more hobbits outside of Hobbiton. It's not just like the Harfoots traveling. It's not these one band of people.
So much to say. You are so right. Cutting the elves is massive. Cutting Farmer Maggot, which helps you understand the character of the hobbits better. Like Farmer Maggot is one of the most virtuous characters of the book of the Fellowship of the Ring. He's amazing. He's a family man. He's like, I love Farmer. He's my spirit animal, Farmer Maggot. Cutting out the all of the Buckland, the old forest, Old Man Willow. You lose all the richness of all the
Fatty Bolger.
And Fatty Bulger's the funny one, right? Because my kids always laugh when I read the part about Fatty Bulger. And then cutting Bombadil, but the enrichment of the world. You cut the whole part of the Barrow Downs, like the lead up to the Witch King going down starts in the Barrow Downs. It starts with the blades of the Barrow Downs that the hobbits get, which we have no reference for whatsoever. It's one of the more beautiful payoffs. Like literally, these are blades forged by men who've been fighting the Witch King centuries ago. They lost, and the blades were buried with them, only to be found by the hobbits and then subsequently used by one of the hobbits to help slay the Witch King.
Yeah, removing that is one of those things that on a second read through, you're like, oh, oh, that's so cool, right? You read it through and you realize that's the blade. That now I didn't remember that the first time. Now I remember where they got it. And it's one of those things that you go through and really
it's so cool
just
because
enriches it so much.
it's a defeated people. Like the history of the fall of Cardolan is sad. I mean, just terrible. Like the Witch King, the ravages that he accomplishes centuries ago, destroying the kingdoms of the north of the Dunedain is stunning. Anyway, it's not better.
So let's talk real fast then about what does it change Gandalf at all by making him by doing this at all? I don't see how it does necessarily because they essentially take away.
I don't think it changes.
So it's not
Gandalf,
a Gandalf thing; it's everything else. It's his mechanism for shortening everything by having Gandalf say to Frodo what Barliman forgot to send to Frodo, essentially.
Right. The let's meet at the Prancing Pony is that's our short version of let's skip 6 chapters of Fellowship of the Ring.
So essentially what he did, now that I think about it, this thought just came to me, is that he said, no, we won't have a letter. We're just going to make Gandalf actually say the letter to Frodo. And so I'm changing the plot of the storyline by essentially giving Frodo the letter already.
Right. Exactly.
Doing this.
Exactly.
So, okay. All right. So how much do we like the change? I don't like this change at all. Man, is that too high? I'm going to go 1.3 on this one. I just feel like a lot of the little things were left out. And granted, I know it's a longer movie, but I certainly think that some of this would have been lovely to have left in. I don't even think they filmed anything from this. They knew right away they weren't going to do any of these items in here. I don't believe there was a Farmer Maggot other than you've been in Maggot's crops again.
Yep.
So yeah, that's that. It's a low number for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I will not give a 1 to things where they're just cutting and they're not warping to be opposite of Tolkien. So I'll give this a 1.8 because it's in the 1 range, but it's not warping Tolkien. It's just you're missing so much by cutting this out that I have to go pretty low.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like it does change the world by cutting out so much, though. I mean, it's you can say I cut out half the book, and then you have changed enough, and he cut out half the book of that first.
Right, but it's the difference between being found by Arwen and feminist Arwen and Glorfindel. That's a warping of Tolkien's character. The feminist mocking Aragorn by sneaking up on him and putting a sword to his throat is like the opposite of what an elf maid would do. So
unlike the Middle Earth Mixer and John Carswell from Tolkien Road podcast who've been on this with us, they're readily handing out 1s and 5s. I'm saving my 1 for my low 1 for the really egregious ones. So all right, there you go. Let's meet at the Prancing Pony. Bad decision, Peter. Bad decision.